Live.
All right, a little late, just a little bit,
Just a few days.
just a few days. It's just a day before the 1060 uh, actually gets reviewed and everybody knows for sure what it's about. But
So another one tomorrow, yeah?
I think we'll save that for Friday. Hopefully, actually do it on Friday this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So welcome to episode 11 of the Never on Time podcast. Um, you know,
Hey, what? I'm not here to disappoint either. Week following next won't be on a Friday.
yeah, so technically wrong
Consistency.
podcast. Technically wrong podcast, episode 11. Everybody, we are incredibly late, but we have been busy playing Pokemon Go.
Hashtag consistently wrong.
Anyway, so I'm going to start off by talking about the Crimson Driver. It's a bit of old news at the moment, but it would have been fresh on Friday. So, yeah, so the Crimson Driver leak. There was a leak that revealed that Greenland, Vega 10, Vega 11, and something called Raven 1X may well be separate architectures. We're going to focus on Greenland, Vega, all that stuff, because we don't know what Raven is. It might be mobile counterpart, something like that. Who knows? The point is, Greenland. Now, we thought that was a code name for Vega 10. It surfaced somewhere. I can't quite recall, but we've heard of Greenland before. I think that was the very before even Polaris was around. I think Greenland was up for
But it's
debate.
cold there.
It is, yeah, so hopefully a nice cool GPU. I mean, with the reference cores that we've been getting from AMD, not necessarily, but with the heat issue of the graphics cards that we've been getting recently, people seem to miss the point that we're lowering the nanometers, which will, no matter what you do, raise the heat. You can have as efficient of an architecture as you like, and you can raise the efficiency of the next generation, but the nanometers are going to either keep the temperature the same or raise it. Because if your efficiency isn't key, like if your efficiency isn't king from the last generation to this one, if you up the efficiency and then lower the nanometers, the temperatures will be relatively the same as the slightly less inefficient higher nanometers. But 80-degree cards are going to be the norm. Okay, when we get down into 10, when we get down to into 8, if we get there, they're going to be really fucking hot. We're probably going to have integrated liquid coolers at below 8 if we can even get there, if it's viable. Because you can only really get down to 5 before it just becomes practically impossible. So yeah, with the heat issues and stuff. Plus, it was a cheap cooler, and it was delivered at a good price. And all in all, even with the GTX 1080, 1070, all of those cards, even with the custom coolers, people are complaining about the temperatures. But to be honest, it's not any of these companies' fault. It's just the nanometers that we're getting down so far that they're going to be warm. They're going to be very warm. You're just going to have to ditch the 680s of the past and say 70 degrees to 80 degrees. 80 degrees is the new norm, essentially, for at least reference coolers. But anyway, so back on track. Greenland, Vega 10, and Vega 11. Now, this poses an interesting question towards the quite old rumor and not very grounded rumor of AMD releasing a GPU in October. There was a rumor circulating a couple sites that AMD may well be releasing a GPU in October. I still say that instead of being like a Fury type card, I reckon it's probably going to be a 490 type card. If they were to release their flagship kind of consumer card at the same time as their CPUs, which then are still kind of up in the air, whether it will be releasing this year or next year, it's still kind of 50-50, the rumors at this point. But I think if they were to release their flagship consumer GPU being a 490 and Zen, that would be a decent marketing move, because you'd have consumer CPUs and a consumer high-end graphics card to put with your consumer, hopefully high-end CPUs. That'd be just a good move, in my opinion. Now, the interesting thing with Greenland and Vega 10 and Vega 11 being sort of confirmed as being separate things, is it leaves us open for the rumor of Vega 10 releasing in October. I doubt that at this point because the roadmap still specifically says that it would be releasing in 2017. I doubt they would just skip that and release it early. I think they just work on it and release it then. But
I think it's also. I mean, I think you're right. Ultimately, I think it'll be a 2017 release. But if Nvidia pull anything, I wouldn't put it past anyone to release that card early and rush it if they have to get a competitor out, because I think that they're getting into an interesting position where they're now starting to compete really well, but I think at some point they're going to get a little bit overzealous while trying to compete, and I think at some point they're going to release something early and it's not going to be good.
so, not going to be good, eh? So you think the 1080 Ti might rear its ugly head around the time possibly a Titan does, probably later this year, and then you think they may rush their graphics cards to compete?
I mean, especially before Christmas. I mean, it could potentially be.
Yeah, but the thing that I was mainly because we haven't had a 490, right? So I think that Greenland is more of a contender to be a 490. Now there are some people saying that the 490 may well be a dual GPU 480, but I doubt that AMD would ditch their relatively new naming scheme of the 90 series being the flagship single GPU and then add a dual GPU graphics card to the roster, because they kind of got out of that with the 7990, the graphics card that I have, because they had the 7970 and the 70 became the highest end GPU, and then it moved on to the R9 series, so fair enough, but then the 90s were always the highest end GPUs, and I think we haven't got many rumors, but they've been kind of confirming it for a while now. And considering that we have Greenland as possibly a separate GPU, I think that's the best contender, because I kind of think they're going to skip the whole Fury thing. I think that Vega 10 and Vega 11 may well be releasing in 2017, and they're the new big contenders. Now, if Greenland was to have something like 3,000 stream processors, or close to 3,000, in that kind of ballpark, it would line up with the kind of specifications that we have currently. Because we have an RX 480 with 2,300, and then we have an RX 470 with around 2,000. And they're separate GPUs. That's Polaris 10. That's the top end of Polaris 10, and it's only 300 or so less than 300 stream process, more than a lower end GPU being Polaris 11. Now with, the kind of efficiency of this graphics card, that's nuts. So kind of in performance wise, so a 3,000 stream processor GPU would contend with the likes of a 1070, if not surpass it possibly. So releasing a 490 and being kind of, the second to best of Nvidia, but still at a good price point, because 3,000 is less of a step up than 4,000. So I think if they brought 3,000 at about, say, 300, so you've got a 2,300 stream processor graphics card coming at 230, well, $4 in the US, but £230, and then a £300 3,000 stream processor graphics card. That would be quite interesting. But I think if they could do that, because they could undercut the 1070, even with significant price drops, they would undercut the 1070 and have relatively the same performance. Now, this could lead up to a position where Vega 10 is 4,096 processors, which is the current rumor. There was that leaked document on that one website for employees or whatever. The guy claiming that he developed the 4,096 stream processor GPU, which is speculatorily the Vega 10 GPU, and then the Vega 11 could have something like 3,500, kind of falling in line with the current lineup from AMD. That would kind of make sense, but that also kind of Would Vega 10 then be the middle ground of the next generation? I doubt it, because generationally we've seen the highest end graphics card or the middle ground be the second and third tier. So I think some Polaris based GPUs, maybe even Greenland, if the 490 is Greenland, be kind of the middle. So I don't know if the 490, if it is Greenland, would be the, say, 470 or maybe 480 or something like that, and Vega 10 and 11 would be the 590 and 580, or whether we'll get two variants of a Fury type card in early 2017, which would also make a bit more sense, because if they're releasing a 490 in October, then releasing the 500 series in early 2017 just wouldn't make much sense. So maybe we're getting, a 490 Greenland, maybe Vega 11, Vega 10, who knows? But those kind of graphics cards, from October to early 2017 to compete directly with Nvidia at that point. Then Nvidia will make their move with the 1100 series, and then AMD will work on making their move. Always one step behind, but always with the price of performance.
Yeah, and their move, it's going to be just rebadging these cards for the next 5 years.
Pretty much. Yeah. They're good GPUs.
So was the 290X when it came out.
It was a bit power hungry, and it was on fire. I mean, so.
Well, I mean, that's what you get for AMD at the time.
Yeah. Speaking of AMD at the time and 5-year periods of nothingness, I wanted to talk about the bulldozer and pile driver architecture, because we've been spreading a bit of misinformation, and I'm not a fan of that. Now, the way we didn't necessarily egregiously put it in any way that is necessarily like super duper wrong or super duper misleading, but we didn't exactly explain it correctly. So I'd like to just clear up because we kind of, I wasn't really super familiar with the architecture for quite some time now, because it's been kind of pointless, because it's a 5-year-old architecture, if not slightly older than that, really. So essentially what happens with bulldozer and pile driver is, so with Intel CPUs, you have 4 cores, each have floating point units, each have their own cache, each have pretty much every single resource available for each core. With bulldozer CPUs, you have a single floating point unit per 2 cores. So, and some cache and stuff like that, which is shared. So you essentially have a core that is kind of made up of 2 in a way. It's like a built-in hyper-threading, sort of, but technically it is 8 or 6 cores. But those cores are sharing resources, which essentially bottlenecks them. AMD would have liked the software to back it up and make it a hell of a lot faster, but it just wasn't there, because when they, because the user base for these kind of CPUs just didn't come along. If they had launched strong, if there was a strong user base, then software would be developed to make it faster. But because of the current software when they launched, they weren't very fast, so nobody bought them, so no software was developed to make them faster. So, yeah, not great. It's essentially what AMD have done is like putting 2 mathematicians in a room with a single blackboard and a single piece of chalk. They have to share that. So if they both have an idea at the same time, they're fumbling for the chalk. It's a bottleneck. AMD wanted to streamline it by basically having the mathematicians work out a system around that. Maybe one mathematician will draw, and one mathematician will talk, and back and forth. Whereas Intel just have essentially 2 mathematicians in separate locations communicating via text message, and with increasing speeds in software, internet, whatever, they get faster and faster at it. So Intel CPUs will get faster, whereas AMD, because of the software and everything like that, they're a bit slower. It's still an interesting architecture, and it's definitely worth noting and worth delving into a lot more depth than I've explained it, at least. And it's fascinating to see what the potential could have been if the software support was there, because really and truly the amount of cores that you can put on an FX, and if they were to work correctly, if they were to work 100%, they would be lightning quick. But the software and also the implementation is not fantastic. If they had more time to develop it, if there was more of a user base and they didn't kind of just leave it for dead, it could be a serious contender. But the reason I bring this up as well, other than the kind of misinformation, sort of, is that Zen seems to be ditching this whole idea and seems to just be essentially what AMD started off doing, copying Intel.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much nail on the head there. I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those really cool techie ideas that's really cool and interesting when it comes out, and then nobody cares enough to adopt it, and so it doesn't get adopted, and it just dies, like most of AMD's technologies, which is really, really sad to say. Like,
Yeah.
that's so sad to say. Like Mantle, like that's dead.
Well,
Like,
no, it's being adapted into Vulkan, but it is
but
not AMD
yeah,
specific anymore. Pretty much.
but that's what I mean. AMD have got like loads of cool technologies that they're like, yeah, we've got this, and nobody really adopts it, but then it kind of finds its way into other things eventually, and it's
Well,
like,
id Software were talking about, they were getting annoyed about people not adopting Vulkan. One of the developers came out and said, "Why isn't anybody using Vulkan? It's vastly superior to DirectX." And Vulkan is essentially like 90% AMD software. You
yeah,
know, the other 10% is just adapting it to work with NVIDIA GPUs.
yeah. I mean, they've got lots of cool technologies, and they've made lots of really cool technologies over the late years. It's just a great deal of it just either hasn't been adopted or just died immediately. It's really sad because there has been some really cool stuff.
Yeah, it's really depressing to see AMD come out with new interesting technologies and then they fail and they don't take them anywhere. And I understand that, then kind of if it fails, taking it somewhere may not be the best idea, but it could be if you just worked on it and improved it and kept going at it. You could really have something. I mean, you had something in the first place, but you could really have something and just screw the consumers. Work on your technologies. You're doing a great job. Just nobody wants to congratulate you for it.
Yeah, screw all the guys that are like paying you your salaries. Just don't worry about them.
Yeah, go bankrupt. We'll have really cool technologies because of it.
And then they still won't be adopted because they're bankrupt.
Yeah, we'll have really cool technologies. You went out of business and nobody uses them.
Yeah, I mean it's really sad, but it seems to be a trend with AMD. I have no idea why. Like genuinely no idea why.
Yeah, it's baffling. It really is, and it's just sad and really annoying for a fanboy.
Yeah, right. Like I make fun of AMD, but I'm like totally an AMD fanboy, like
Oh
without
yeah,
doubt.
yeah.
But I still make fun of them.
Well, I mean, to start off as a company that literally just cloned Intel CPUs to making your own architectures that beat Intel. Like, Intel essentially got their patents straight, sued the crap out of AMD, and basically sent like a million cease and desists. And then AMD were like, okay, let's make an architecture that's vastly superior to Intel and beat them over the head with it over and over and over again, up until a point where they just failed. Because AMD were just the better company for the longest time. They had the fastest clock speeds. That's not necessarily the best thing, but they did. They had the best CPUs. And Radeon had the best GPUs on the market in like the mid 2000s. It was AMD and Radeon. And then they teamed up, and then they failed miserably.
Yep.
They should have stayed separate companies.
Yeah. But I mean, I think ultimately, if they want to succeed, they have to go the way that Intel is going. Not because they need to copy Intel, but because they need to go the way that is popular, the way that people, developers are doing things, the way that
I mean, there's
things
enough.
are being.
Like I said, the software is there for the architecture that Intel have. So if AMD can
That's
modify
it.
it slightly and have a similar architecture, then they will hopefully succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm quite hopeful that Zen will do well. If it does, I may buy a Zen computer. Who knows? But we'll see. I really want it to do well.
Especially with Intel's recent fuck ups, like they've had a lot of because they had issues with Skylake, they had issues with Haswell. Broadwell's pretty rock solid, I think, but they had those like because there was a security issue with Skylake, right?
I think so, but I couldn't tell you what it was off the top of my head.
Yeah, me neither. That was quite old news. But yeah, they've had problems with their CPUs recently because they've just got lazy because there's no competition. So no matter what, Zen will be a good thing.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. I'm excited to see how well it does, because speculation is good. So we'll see, I guess.
But I will be holding this over everybody's heads that didn't agree with me if Greenland is the 490. And if it's not, I will never speak of it ever again.
And I will bring it up every podcast.
Who bent a CPU yesterday?
I don't want to talk about that, actually.
Go on.
Oh, really?
Go on.
Oh, okay.
You can blame it on MSI.
Blame it on FSI. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm building a new computer for something, and so I've got an ITX motherboard. It's an MSI one. It's an MSI Pro something or other. Black looking thing. Anyway, and so I'm installing it into this 3U ultra short depth server case because it's just going to go in a rack mount with audio equipment. So I installed the board. Okay, I went to install a CPU, and it's one of those things. Like I wasn't really paying attention. I was doing this while like doing other things on my computer.
You were also just talking to me.
I was also chatting to you online while just like I had my desk in front of me, my laptop on my desk, chatting to you with push to talk, and like the server was just on my knee, and I was like putting the CPU in.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's my own fault, but I put the CPU in effectively upside down because I saw the arrow on the socket and just assumed that's where it was meant to go, and that wasn't where it was meant to go. It was meant to go to the little semicircle, which I wasn't paying attention to. So I pressed it in, I pressed it down, and it wasn't until I clicked the arm in and saw that the pins aren't aligned that I was like, what's going on? I lifted it up, and the whole CPU was just bent at the corners.
To give due credit, you fixed it somehow.
Oh yeah, basically, and I don't recommend this. If there are anyone listening that runs into this issue, don't do this at home. I got a pair of pliers, and I very carefully bent it back into shape, and it works great.
Remember, kids, we are trained professionals.
Well, one of them is.
Screw you.
Yep.
Oh, your stories of failure are so fantastic. But you never talk about your stories of success, probably because there's actually a hell of a lot of them.
Oh yeah, like I work with pieces every day and I do stuff every day. Like success isn't funny, but it's more funny when I just mess up every now and then.
Yeah. Oh, you see, like I was explaining earlier, I've never installed anything wrong, and this is without reading any manuals or anything. It's been faulty hardware. I've been incredibly unlucky with faulty hardware. I've had faulty power supplies, I've had faulty hard drives, well, that's pretty common, but I've had faulty RAM sticks. My CPU can barely overclock whatsoever, and occasionally just blue screens out of the blue. I have even
User
at
error.
even at stock speeds, just blue screens for no fucking reason.
It's just user error.
Of course it is. And yeah, I've had brick GPUs. I had an exploding power supply in my first PC. It was a silver box piece of crap, and I didn't build it. It was handed down, but still, an exploding power supply. Just a bloody nightmare of failure in components.
Something really bad that I did the other day, and again, please don't do this at home. Just please, okay? I'm a trained professional, quite literally. And so we have a server room, right? The server room isn't massive. Our company doesn't have a ridiculous amount of servers. We have what we need, because most of our stuff is kind of cloud-based, and so it is what it is. But I went into the server room, and you've been working for computers for too long. When you walk into a room full of computers, all of them are making fan noise, all of them are making noise. You stand there for a second, and you're like, one of these is making the wrong noise. And like, it's not like it's making a different noise to normal. It's like the tone is different. That's not the right. That's not how that should sound. And so you walk around the room trying to find the PC that's got this not okay sound. And it's not like clicking, it's just a slightly different fan sound than you would expect. And you just walk in the room like, huh. Yeah, that happened to me this week.
The ambiance is not correct in this room.
Yeah, that's it. It was like a CPU fan was the bearings going on it quite badly. I checked the server, and it was like running hotter than normal because the CPU fan was not rattling a bit, and it wasn't spinning properly, and so it wasn't cooling the CPU anymore. But it wasn't really rattling, but it was spinning, and it was a slight grinding sound to it, just very slight. But when you walked in the room, I'm so used to hearing the solid fan sound that actually when that sounded out of place, you just kind of know when you hear it. I mean, it took me a while to find it, but yeah.
Yeah, you've been spending a little much time in the server room, but that's a good catch. Cause,
yeah, and then I replaced the CPU fan without turning the PC off.
Nice.
Yep, because it was it's an Intel one, but it's an aftermarket Intel one where it's screwed into the heatsink. So I just got a replacement 80mm fan, unscrewed it from the heatsink, and then basically I just unplugged it, got another fan, and screwed that one back in and plugged it in. And yeah, I mean, it was crying about the fact it was getting really hot for a few minutes, but it wasn't running any heavy workloads. It was pretty much just idling, and so it's fine. Don't try it at home, but I mean, it was idling, and it was fine.
Essentially, if Jamie says something that he's done, just don't do it.
I'm a trained professional. Don't try this at home.
I'm a trained professional. I know what I'm doing. Just don't do any of the stuff that I'm doing. Okay?
I know how you should do stuff. I just don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Perks of being an IT professional. Just interestingly, I just turned around and I seriously 4 graphics cards on my shelf. It's just 4 random graphics cards. Because when I was building this PC, I told you about this, Luke, but the 750 Ti I had was too tall for the case.
Yeah.
And so it didn't fit. I got some really stupid picture of it just not fitting at all because the cooler was just too tall. So I chose trying other. It's got a GT610 in there, a passive cooled one at the minute, but I've got my 560 out, and I've got a GT630, I want to say. I just dug them out of the box.
Alright, so you went rummaging to find one that would fit.
Yeah, I just went around just looking for GPUs, and I just found a couple of them. So now they're all sitting on my shelf.
Yeah, I had a GT630 as well out of a crappy little PC that I found on the road. And I have a 4850, which was my original GPU that I used for many years on my original PC that exploded. The power supply did, at least. That was scary. I was just sitting down one day. I was watching Dexter. It's coming to one of the last seasons or something like that. I don't know. It's getting a bit dull, frankly. First 2 seasons, fantastic. Third season, not great. And then the rest of it, really not great. But I was watching Dexter, and I was sitting there, and I think I opened up like Chrome or something. And at this point, because my setup at that point was two 1366 by 768 monitors.
Nice.
Nice, yeah, I know, right? And I had my PC back facing me, so the IO facing me, so I could plug my keyboard in, have it on my bed, and my mouse also on my bed, and my headset and all that stuff. And then, so the power supply, because it was an old case, was at the top. So I was just sitting down watching Dexter. I loaded up like Google Chrome at the time. I used Firefox later on and Opera now. It's actually really good. Um, and then just sparks fucking flew out of the back of my power supply towards my face. Terrifying. Complete utter KO. Everything's dead except for the GPU. Now, this was a completely labelless box. I had no idea whether it had like two 12-volt rails or two this or that, but I'm pretty sure it had two rails, and one of the rails was dedicated to the GPU. At the time, I had recently upgraded to a 660, and I think that might have been the downfall of the piece. Well, it can't, because if it had two rails, then it would be supplying power to the 6-pin specifically. It only had one 6-pin, by the way. So to the 6-pin specifically. There's a whole reason I got a 660 instead of a 660 Ti, which I could have afforded. I ended up getting a 660 and Dishonored and Far Cry 3 and a few other select games instead of a 660 Ti, because I would have to then upgrade my power supply and my graphics card, and I wouldn't be able to afford a 660 Ti in the first place. So I just stuck with the old silver box, which I knew wasn't a good idea, but I figured it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then I plugged in my 660. And so that was the only thing that survived out of my PC. Everything else was connected to, I guess, the other 12-volt rail. Yeah, it fucking exploded in my face. That was a surprise. That was like, it was 2 weeks before my birthday. So I panicked, and I called all of my fucking aunts and my uncles and my grandparents, and I said, I need money, PC.
Balls.
I basically explained, my PC just exploded. Can you give me some money, please? You know, more money than you regularly would for my birthday.
Oh, that does sound inconvenient though.
Because at that point, for my birthday, I was going to save up for an i5 processor and a new motherboard, and of course power supply and a case and all that stuff, and I was going to start saving up for all those components. My end goal at that point in time was to have two 660s, because I was theorizing at that point in time that two 660s would be more powerful than the next generation's flagship 780. It was. Two 660s is still at this, still more powerful than a 780, obviously. So I was right about my assumption. So I was going to get two 660s and an i5, and I was going to get the Asus Sabertooth motherboard at the time, and an SSD, probably like 60 gigabytes at that point. It was so fucking expensive, and a new case and fancy all that stuff. And then it just fucking exploded, and I ended up getting a 6300 AMD processor and a cheap, crappy blue Asus board. And I got the one thing I did not spare any expense on, the power supply.
Oh, really?
That was like one of the most expensive components of my computer.
Nice.
Was the power supply. It was more expensive than my CPU. I didn't want it to explode in my face again.
Yeah, it's annoying when power supplies die. I mean, probably more annoying for you because the computers you work with only have one. But
yes.
I'll
Well,
let
your
them-
bloody laptop only has one, alright?
Yeah, it's on a brick that can change.
Touche.
That's it.
But does your laptop have a built-in battery? I guess you could take it apart and replace it, but still,
It does have a battery. You can take it out.
built-in or
No,
removable?
removable.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Because removable ones are considerably cheaper than built-in custom-fit batteries. Essentially a power supply at that point. Yeah. But you're going to build a PC, aren't you? You're going to build a desktop at some point.
Yeah, I'm gonna build a rack-mounted desktop. I'm kind of
Are
over
you
the
that
big cases.
obsessed with server-grade hardware that you
No,
want
I
to
just
pull a full Linus?
pull a full Linus.
Never go full Linus.
Oh, wow. Hashtag going full Linus. Anyway, I can't remember what I was talking about now. So yeah,
Rack
I was
mount.
good.
Rack mount, yeah.
Oh, that could be something else entirely. So yeah, I'm basically because I did like the full tower cases for a while, and I'm just kind of over that. Like they're just big, and like I don't have anywhere to really put it, and it takes up too much room on my desk, and I don't really have the space on the floor. I'm just kind of over it. So I just want something like a PC I can just kind of keep out of the way. I don't really care how it looks. I just want it to function. And so I'm gonna get a rack. I've got some rack mount audio gear here personally for the recording and stuff I do. So yeah, I'm gonna just get a rack mount PC and put it in there. I'm probably gonna do like water cooling though. So
yeah. My next PC upgrade would definitely be Mini ATX. Micro ATX, fucking hell. Because I was thinking about Mini ATX when you talk about rack mount. But yeah, Mini ATX. Fuck me. Micro ATX. And I would. My original plan about a year ago was to go with a Micro ATX X99 with a 5800 maybe, or a 50. Yeah, probably a 5800K. And then get two Fury X's. Of course, I would never be able to afford that in a million years in my current situation, but still, I definitely gonna go. I like the Entho Primo, is it? So the Entho Evolve, the Entho Evolve is the smaller little. That's a beautiful case, and it doesn't have a 5 1/4 inch, which I like because they ruin the aesthetic of any case, no matter what it is, unless it has a door. And then if it has a door, just don't have a 5 1/4 inch base is my option. I don't like them. Look, people in the world, just get an external disk drive. And
do you
if
know
you're
what
gonna,
I use mine? Do you know what I use mine for? Because the server case I'm getting, I say server case like it's an ultra short depth rack mount case. I wouldn't ever mount a server in it because I just wouldn't. But the case I'm gonna get is actually has three 5 1/4 inch bays, but they've got a replacement thing, so you can take the 3 5/4 inch bays out and put in like put
hot
in
swaps.
yeah hot swappable 3 1/4 inch drives, five of them in their place.
Yeah,
And that's what I
much
always
better
do.
use.
I always do that. I pull them out, put hot swap drives in.
Absolutely. If there was a case on the market that I actually liked with 5 1/4 inch, I'd just fill it with hot swaps. But there isn't, because now, especially with the trend of tempered glass on absolutely every single case that is new,
Yeah.
the 5 1/4 inch bay just sticks out so much. It's so ugly. Let alone hard drive cages. 5 1/4 is just this big, bold, weird sheet of metal with holes in it, and it just it looks disgusting. I'm not a big fan of the huge tempered glass movement that we're in at the moment. Let's just get all of our old cases and make them cost more. I don't I don't
Right.
get it. I really don't understand. Anyway, yeah, I'd like to talk about Pokemon Go for a bit, because that is honestly probably one of the main reasons why we've been delayed. Because you got lost in the field for a bit.
I did. actually.
That's the reason we didn't do the Friday show. Because Jamie was in a field somewhere.
Yep. Until 2
And
a.m.
yeah, so there's big rivalry between the teams, and I don't really care. I picked Team Valor simply because I with the entirety of my team that I play Overwatch with essentially told me that if I didn't play Team Valor, they would berate me for the rest of my existence. So I figured, well, I'll think about it. And by the time I actually reached level 5, because this is like on the first day of European release, so on the first day, it got taken over by Team Instinct. All of the gyms in my area, except for 2, they were Team Mystic. But when I actually reached level 5, because I'm a lazy fuck and I don't get outside very much, um, every single one of the gyms in like in a miles radius was taken over by Team Valor. So I figured I'm quite low level. My Pokemon aren't even close to being this powerful. Might as well join Team Valor simply because my area is now a Valor district. As well as, my friends kind of hated me. Because I wanted to go Team Mystic because I want to be a water type Pokemon trainer. Because Blastoise is the best.
I joined Team Mystic because I got self-respect.
Ow! Fuck you! It's the biggest team. I'll never go for the biggest team. I don't go for Nvidia or Apple. Fuck you.
Not.
Well, okay, I can't necessarily say Intel.
But it's the biggest. Mystic is the smallest here. Both Valor and Instinct are
Yeah,
bigger.
because they're blue, and that was the vote fucking stay party.
Wow.
Anyway, so my issues with Pokemon Go are this. The servers are terrible. That's understandable. They're overloaded to the degree of they really shouldn't have really released it in North America at the time that they did, or Europe at the time that they did, because they could barely handle the traffic they were getting from Japan and Australia and New Zealand. So essentially, the servers are terrible. If I go out at any time that's not 3 o'clock in the morning to around 7 o'clock in the morning, so about from a period of around like 1 to 7, so a 6 hour period where there's no traffic in Europe, right? If I go out at 8 o'clock in the morning, servers are dead. 9 servers are dead. It's probably specifically my area. Hell, we might be even maxing out the fucking cell networks around my area. But I walked out of my house at 8 o'clock and I went to go and catch the EV that was in my area because they are fucking elusive. I have I have had so many EVs pop up on my radar and I've not found a single one. It's really fucking annoying because the game crashes a million times per second. So every time I actually have an EV in my radar, I walk for like a mile and it pops up as the first thing on the thing. I'm like, I'm close. I'm gonna get there. I'm nearly there. Game crashes. Log back in. It's not fucking there. It's really annoying. Anyway, so that yeah, I walked out of my house about 8 o'clock in the morning. I went to go and check out the gym next to me, which was recently conquered by Valor, and I wanted to see what the most powerful Pokemon in there was. So I click on the gym 1,000 times because it wasn't working, wasn't registering. Uh, so I walk back a little bit. It's frozen in that area. So I click on it again. The game completely freezes. So I relog back in and I click on the gym. Most powerful Pokemon, 1,400 Lapras. Fair enough. Okay, not even fucking in the ballpark. Not even like, not even just not on the board. Not 1% of the way there. I am not. No, just no. So I walk around. I see a Rattata. Fair enough. I'll catch the Rattata. Screw it. I'll just I'll boost my Eradicate or whatever. And tapping on it, tapping on it, tapping on it, nothing happens. Then the game goes into like 0 FPS mode, like 1 to 2 FPS mode, and then I catch it. The game completely freezes. on the catching animation. Log back in, haven't caught the Rattata. It's not on my radar anymore. Go to catch a Pidgey, exact same thing happens. Then I lose connection altogether. It says cannot connect to game server or something like that. Retry on another account. So I start walking home. I'm at home. I go upstairs. No Wi-Fi enabled, but it logs me back in on the stairs up to my house, right? Fuck. So I go back outside, lose connection again. You gotta be fucking kidding me, right? It's a nightmare. I like the game, okay? I like the game. It's thoroughly addictive, but it seems like, okay, I'm basically just ripping off Jim Sterling again at this point, because if I was gonna make a lot of these points yesterday, day before last, and Friday, but we didn't do them those days. But now Jim Sterling has come out with a video that basically makes all the points that I'm gonna make, so kind of just, yeah. But essentially what he said and I was thinking is they released a game in a sort of unfinished state. But it's still a really good game because it gets people together. It's fun. It's really fun. And it gets me out of the house, So I really do enjoy my gallivants at 1 to 7 o'clock in the morning, going around the park, kind of circling with incense on, walking up and down all of these little roads that I'd never actually been down. And of course, living in London, being threatened, or worrying at least about being mugged consistently, because everybody stares at you until you stare at them, and then they look squarely down at the floor, and if they don't, some shit's about to go down. And if you've got a phone in your hand, you really know some shit's about to go down. So essentially what's happened is everybody that I've talked to has said they've gone out, they've gone to parks, and they've walked around shopping, doing all this, and everybody's on their phone playing Pokemon Go. No matter where they go, there's somebody playing Pokemon Go. Not the case in London. I went to a place where there was a lure, and I sat there for 30 minutes walking around the area with my own lure on, because I put my lure on. I was about 5 minutes in, and then I found the lure on the post box or whatever, and I walked up to it, and I sat next to it, and I caught a bunch of Pidgeys, bunch of Rattatas, wanted to catch a bloody Poliwhirl that was in my area, and I walked around trying to find that for a while. But not a single fucking person was there. Not a single person was there. I am quite lucky, however, to live in London because I currently live on a Pokestop. Literally across the road, within eye distance of my kitchen window, is a Pokestop. It's a church. And across the road from that is a town hall. And up the road from that is the post box with the lore that was there. And to my right-hand side is a big squiggly art feature. And across the road from that is another thing, and then another thing, and the gym is a tire shop literally next to me. I can walk maybe a minute around from my house to get to my local gym, which is way too high a level for me to do anything in, but it's there. So I'm exceedingly lucky to be in London, but being in London means that the communication isn't there, that nobody wants to talk to you, and you will not find anybody playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah, as you said, I've got the opposite issue here. I say opposite issue. I've got the opposite thing here. Everybody's playing Pokemon Go here. I go outside and there are just people playing, and there are people that just talk to you and chat to you. But I guess I live in a much smaller town. I don't live in London, so thankfully.
Yeah, it's not. I want to move. I've grown up with city life. I'm used to the convenience, but just the quality of people and the prices of just everything. Everything's inflated in London, no matter what you do. You walk into PC World. I mean, you walk into a PC World anywhere, and the price is going to be inflated. But especially because it's in a big shopping block of a retail park essentially. So you walk into the PC World and you see a 60 gigabyte SSD for £100.
What?
That was last year, but I did see that. I also saw a 1 terabyte hard drive for what was it, like £50?
That's £10 more than you get on the internet, which isn't extortionate, but at the
But
same time,
that was a couple of days ago.
that's awful.
Yeah, not a couple of months. Yeah, the SSD was a long time ago. It was a crappy Crucial one as well. You know, one of the really low speed budget ones.
Yeah.
I looked at that. I actually took a picture of it and I laughed. I sent it to my friend. I was like, "Is PC World from the 90s? What's going on?"
Might as well be.
Yeah, it's oh, and they don't sell a single high end GPU in there.
I know.
It's beautiful. The highest end GPU I've ever seen in there was I think a 660, and that was a year ago as well.
I mean, they'll probably tell you that is the top of the line GPU.
Oh yeah, it's the fastest GPU that any retailer is stocking at the moment.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. I personally own 4 of them. No, they probably say I have 5 in one PC. That'd be great. Oh my god, yeah, no. I walked around. Me and my friend enjoyed torturing the PC World employees. We just asked them questions like, how many hyperthreads does this PC have? It's clearly marked on the actual product, but they have no fucking clue. They don't even take the time to read it. We went to the PC help desk thing, and just asked a bunch of questions, and they had fucking no clue. It's beautiful. That's the problem though. The professionals in London, at least, have no idea. I had a woman come down and install our internet, and she specifically thought that we needed a red cable, a red Ethernet cable. It couldn't
Yeah, I've
be
heard
any
this
other
story.
color. Couldn't be any other color. It needed to be a red Ethernet cable. And I was like, is that because it's specifically like a BT branded Cat 5 or like a Cat 6 or something? She's like, no, it just needs to be red. Look, there's a red port on the back of the route. It needs to be red. Oh, okay. Fair enough. And I was away for a while. My mother called down the technician because the router was playing up or whatever. And the guy came in and he literally unplugged the Ethernet and plugged it into the other one, and then said it was done. I came home and promptly plugged it back into the high speed port. What the fuck? Morons. Absolute morons.
Yep. That is what we're dealing with. But BT engineer, we've had. I actually at my work, I actually don't let BT engineers come up anymore. Like, whenever we get sent new equipment from BT, like I just tell them not to bother with the engineer. I just install it myself because they're just. I mean, no offense to them. Don't get me wrong. Like, they are absolutely useless, but it's down to a training thing. Like, the BT just hires like either. I don't even want to say rubbish people, because they're just not trained like they should be. They just don't know the stuff they should know, and like it should be the company's responsibility. It's not. It shouldn't be the employees. You know, if they've hired them, then they should have an investment to train them as an employee to
Here
know
is a
what they need to know.
spreadsheet with the most often answered questions with really open-ended answers. Good luck.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they have.
It's not their fault, and I felt bad because I kind of berated her a little bit because I came across as a massive fucking elitist asshole who knew everything, but that was because I wanted my fucking internet to be installed properly. You know? I felt bad because like she's obviously like a relatively new recruit. She doesn't know. They just hired her off the fucking street. It's not her fault, right? But I still want my fucking internet to be installed properly.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, on that note of me being a massive arsehole, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here.
What's your most powerful Pokemon first of all?
What's my most powerful Pokemon? Give me 1 second. Let me open up Pokemon. I caught a Pidgey while you were talking.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So, my most powerful Pokemon is... I'm not that high. It's an 887 Hypno. And then I
See,
have a 665 Pidgeot, a 550 Raticate, a 529 Beedrill, a 500 Rhyhorn.
I haven't found that many Drowsings around my area.
They're everywhere here.
Yeah, they pop on the radar every now and then, but just not often enough for me to really buff them. Because I've seen a trend on all of the gyms. There's always a Hypno, always, and then there's usually like you know,
I've got a good Hypno as well because it actually knows some good moves.
yeah. My most powerful is a CP 500 Radicate. I think it's 521, something like that. And then my Squirtle is a mere 300, and then I have the... I can't... What's the evolved version of Pidgey?
Pidgeotto?
Yeah, I think it's Pidgeotto. Yeah, I have a 400 and something Pidgeotto, but I haven't been outside very much because I've mostly been playing Overwatch Ranked, which is thoroughly annoying because of reasons I've mentioned many times in the past. But I do have a full 6-man team now, so it's not too bad. We've been consistently going up and then dropping a little bit, but we've been consistently going up overall, so it's not too bad. It's very fun with a full 6-man, but just if you want to play Overwatch rank, don't solo queue. Just don't do it. It's not fun.
Fair enough.
Well, you can find me at Alkarius Endgame on Twitter, and I may post some content at some point somewhere, essentially.
Yeah, I'm all the places and I may or may not post content or something. Anyway. Hashtag doing the social thing, but not at all.
Yeah, leaving the house is too much effort. I just put a lure on the Pokestop that is literally within distance of my house, and then I can stay at home.
Okay then.
Being lazy is my profession.